Before I begin into this article that I came across recently, those of you who have listened to very many of my videos here know that I'm a creationist, that I 100% agree with the biblical story of creation, and I just, I like, when I'm dealing with an article that deals with millions of years, I like to point that out first. I don't believe that the Earth is millions of years old. But I also don't believe it's only 6,000 years old, like a lot of creationists tend to believe. This article that I came across was titled "The World's Oldest Stone Tools Predate Humans," and it sounded rather intriguing to me, so I'd like to share this with you and add a little bit of my commentary along the way. The article by Charles Q. Coyle begins thusly. The oldest handmade stone tools discovered yet predate any known humans and may have been wielded by an as yet unknown species, researchers say. The 3.3 million year old stone artifacts are the first direct evidence that early human ancestors may have possessed the mental abilities needed to figure out how to make razor-sharp stone tools. The discovery also rewrites the book on the kind of environmental and evolutionary, I should say evolutionary, pressures that drove the emergence of the tool makers. Chimpanzees and monkeys are well known to use stones as tools, picking up rocks and hammer to open nuts and solve other problems. However, until now, only members of the human lineage, the genus Homo, which includes the modern human species Homo sapiens, and extinct humans such as Homo erectus, were thought capable of making stone tools. Ancient stone artifacts from East Africa were first discovered at the Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania in the mid-20th century. Those stone tools were later associated with fossils of the ancient species Homo habilis discovered in the 1960s. I want to pause here because when you look, and I challenge you to look up all the information you can find on the Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania on those artifacts, and whether or not they really did deal with an early human being. The fossil remains of the early humans, or what they call our ancestors, are extremely, extremely slim. And is not at all as mainstream science would have us believe. But I'll continue. The traditional view for decades was that the earliest stone tools were made by the first members of Homo. Study lead author Sonia Harmond, an archaeologist at Stony Brook University in New York, told Live Science. The idea was that our lineage alone took the cognitive step of hitting stones together to strike off sharp flakes, and that this was the foundation of our evolutionary success. Yeah, right. Anyways, however, there were hints of primitive tools in use before Homo habilis. In 2009, researchers Dikia, Ethiopia, dug up animal bones nearly 3.4 million years old that had slashes and other cut marks, evidence that someone used stone to trim flesh from the bone and perhaps crush bones to get at the marrow that's inside. This is the earliest evidence of meat and marrow consumption by hominins. All the species leading to and including the human lineage after the split from the ancestors of chimpanzees, or after we split from the ancestors of chimpanzees. There are some people that make me feel that this is true, that we at one time were related to these more primitive life forms, but they just have the appearance of it. No tools were found at that site, so it was unclear whether the marks were made with handmade tools or just naturally sharp rocks. But now scientists report stone artifacts that date back long before any human fossils. Until now, the earliest known tools were about 2.8 million years old, the researchers said. The artifacts are by far the oldest handmade stone tools yet discovered, and the previous record holders, known as the Olduvai stone tools, were about 2.6 million years old. We're not surprised to find stone tools older than 2.6 million years because paleoanthropologists have been saying it for at least a decade that they should be out there somewhere. Harmon said, but we were surprised that the tools we found are so much older than Oldowan at 3.3 million years old. If remains unknown what species made these stone tools, they could have been created by an as yet unknown extinct human species, or an Australopithecus, which is currently the leading contender for the ancestry of the human lineage, or by Kenyanthropus, a 3.3 million year old skull of which was discovered in 1999, about a half a mile from the newfound tools. It remains uncertain exactly how Kenyanthropus relates to either Homo or Australopithecus. But let me tell you, just because they found these a half a mile away from this skull does not mean there's any connection between them at all. And to jump to that conclusion, that's pretty bad science. Continuing with the article, though, sometimes the best discoveries are the ones that raise more questions than provide answers. Study co-author Jason Lewis, a paleoanthropologist at Stony Brook University and Rutgers University in New Jersey. And he told Live Science, in any of these cases, the story is equally new and interesting, and we are comfortable not having all the answers right now. The stone tools were discovered in the desert badlands of northwestern Kenya. Maybe they're related to our president. Anyways, where the arid, rocky terrain resembles a New Mexican landscape, the artifacts were found next to Lake Turkana in 2011, almost by accident. We were driving in the dry riverbed and took a left branch instead of the right and got off course, Hammond said. Essentially, we got lost and ended up in a new area that looked promising. Something was really unique about this place. We could tell that this zone had a lot of hidden areas just waiting to be explored. And by the end of 2012 field season, excavations at the site, named Lomkwe 3, had uncovered 149 stone artifacts linked with toolmaking. The researchers tried using stones to knock off and shape so-called flakes or blades, a process known as knapping, and to better understand how these stone artifacts might have been made. They concluded that the techniques used may represent a stage between the pounding used by earlier hominins and the knapping of later tool makers. Now, here's a part that kind of surprises me, and makes me question how much validity there is to these finds being as ancient as they say they are. The article says analysis of carbon isotopes in the soil and animal fossils at the site allowed the scientists to reconstruct what the vegetation there used to be like. This led to another surprise. Back then, the area was partially wooded and a shrubby environment. Now, I've always been told that carbon dating is very, very, very inaccurate. But I've also been told that it can't be done on lithics or stone material. It has to be something other than stone to be able to date it at all. So the dates that they came up with, I just don't know how they could come up with them at all, or ascertain what the vegetation there would have looked like at that time. Of course, they could have gotten a peek at what the vegetation looked like by finding other fossils, but as far as I know, you still cannot date stone by carbon-14, and these fossils, by their very nature of what they're called, are living things that have turned to stone by various natural processes. Continuing, conventional thinking has been that sophisticated toolmaking came in a response to a changing climate that led to shrinking forests and the spread of savanna grasslands. Stone blades likely helped ancient humans get food by helping them cut meat off the carcass of animals, given how there was then less food such as fruit to be found in the forest. However, these findings suggest that the Lomkwe stone tools may have been used for breaking open nuts or tubers, bashing upon open dead logs to get at the insects inside, or maybe something not yet thought of. It's an interesting article, though, and no doubt the artifacts they found are of great antiquity. But we can't know how great that antiquity is if we don't know, or excuse me, if we try to date stone with carbon-14. It just doesn't work. You know, here, not too far from where I live, I found what I believe is a middle to late archaic, possibly even early, archaic site, a Native American site, about 5 blocks from my apartment building. And I've collected probably about 80, 85 artifacts from that site. And the thing is, if I show these to a professional archaeologist, they're going to say, oh, well, those are just natural stones. I'm not stupid. I know the wear patterns. I can spot arc pecking and flint napping. And the thing is, so these same types of artifacts over in Kenya are considered of great antiquity. And they're not any different than the ones that I found here, actually. But these ones wouldn't be accepted as genuine Michigan artifacts, because I don't think there's been any early archaic period occupation sites in Michigan that are known of, other than possibly this one. Anyways, thanks for taking the time to listen. Hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.